So, it's my pleasure to announce Vijay Prashad. He's the author of, most recently, among his many, many books and articles, of Darker Nations, A People's History of the Third World. And you can find a lot of his work on Counterpunch.org. Counterpunch.org if you want.
Best website in the world. Counterpunch. Most idiosyncratic. How many have read Counterpunch? Not everybody. No. Like it's Punch Counterpunch. So it's a fight back website edited by most interesting editors. If you get a chance, you should look at it. Anyway, I'm happy to be here, by the way. When I first heard that this was happening in Wall Street, I went there. It was the day after the first tent had come up. And I was bewildered. They said 1,000 people, but not yet 1,000. It was a little chaotic initially, and then it settled in. And basically, I've been waiting for this thing to happen forever. Like it's inconceivable we can live in a society where there is such barbaric inequality and such barbaric militarism, and we just take it sitting down. The right wing is out there doing their bizarre kind of politics, and all human beings are being silenced. So actually, this is not a surprise to me. The other thing that I just thought immediately was I was extremely glad there were no demands. And the reason is that we have so many grievances that all our grievances need to first have an airing. There should be a time for just to be out there saying these are the million things wrong, including, for instance, bad, somebody doesn't like injection, somebody is angry about starvation. So what I decided to do was I decided to travel around to the different Occupy sites and interview people, talk to them. Why are you here? How did you come here? What have you learned? What brought you here? And I've learned surprising things. The most interesting thing is every single Occupy site has a different focus. So for instance, in New Haven, the focus is homelessness. And what you'll find is in New Haven that this is not the first time people have occupied the green in New Haven. That green has been occupied in 2002 on the issue of homelessness. That green has been occupied 1992 on the issue of homelessness. That green was occupied twice in the 1980s on the issue of homelessness. So homelessness is the central issue in New Haven. In Hartford, the central issue is starvation. Because you may not know that Hartford has an unemployment rate of 33.5%, official unemployment rate, one of the poorest cities in the nation. So there the question is starvation. Here the question is, as you'd expect, student debt. I mean, I've walked around and within, I've done a few interviews already, and within about half an hour I learned from 6 people the principal issue bringing them here is student debt, which not surprisingly clocked past $1 trillion last week. It crossed the 1 trillion threshold. I mean, we have a crazy society. $2.4 trillion in personal debt held by ordinary people, $1 trillion in student debt. Basically the imagination is cut off. I get students coming in first year in taking loans. Immediately, the only thing they can think about is, what can I study that's going to give me a job so I can pay back these damn student loans? In other words, there's no time to develop an imagination. There's no time to develop logic. There's no time to breathe. There's no time to even read Moby Dick, which I learned from the New York Times today every American should read. But how can they read Moby Dick when they have to prepare to be basically functionaries in these buildings? If you want to be a functionary, there's no point reading Moby Dick. Moby Dick, in fact, is going to make you not want to be a functionary. Because in a sense, it's a book about rebellion. So, we get young people in debt, $80,000, $70,000. They leave school, they need to pay that debt back. Their lives have already been indentured. In other words, to be educated is to be indentured. Right. To be educated is not to be free. To be educated is to put your brain in somebody else's pocket. It is no longer your brain, you have no autonomy. So that's one great vulgarity in our society. That is going to kill everything that people think we stand for. Essentially, it is making us into cogs to fill buildings where there are in fact no jobs. I mean, this is a Potemkin village. These are empty buildings. They have laid off everybody. They have lights in them, but nobody is to work there. This is just a space to impress people, but it's not actually to create anything of value. So we are in a crazy society. Even crazier than that is in the last 10 years, we've spent $7.6 trillion on the two wars, Afghanistan, Iraq, supplemental wars, Libya, Colombia, Uganda. We spent $7.6 trillion in homeland security. We spent $7.6 trillion maintaining bases in over 100 countries in the world. Plus, that $7.6 trillion includes the money spent on taking care of veterans when they return. You know, the body armor has changed. In the days of Vietnam, casualty rates, mortality rates were much higher. Now, there's very good body armor, which means that we have very large numbers of people returning from combat who were not killed in the war, but who lost limbs. You have to count now what it's going to take us to take care of veterans. If you add all that stuff together, it's $7.6 trillion spent on warfare. So that's the crazy system we live in. We spend $7.6 trillion on warfare. We have ordinary people holding $2.4 trillion in personal debt and students with now $1 trillion in debt. What kind of society is that? I mean, in my opinion, it's not a 99% versus 1%. This is 100% wrong. There is not even 1% right. Because guess what? Even the 1% are miserable. The 1% don't have the time to spend their money. I ask my students, simple thing, you get $100 million bonus. How will you spend it? Okay, they write down, I'll buy an island, I'll do this, I'll do that, I'll buy planes, cars, Maserati, you know. Then you get the next year another 100 million. What will you do to spend it? Then I say to them, where's the fucking time to spend this? You've been working 80 hours a day, you know, you'll be leaving on a helicopter back to your home, your children will not recognize you, you will be in your 6th or 7th marriage, nobody cares about you, and then you die. So even the 1% are miserable. There is no joy in this kind of system. This system is 100% crazy. See, that is why there is no point reforming it. That is why there's no point saying, let's pass this bill, that bill, push them a little, push them. They are not able to be pushed. They have lost their minds. The point is, we have to do a mental transplant. We have to get ourselves unafraid of changing this system, making a different system. No point thinking about tinkering around, which is why make concrete demands? Why say we want the Employee Free Choice Act to pass? Of course we want that to pass, but that's not the point. Even the passage of that act will be constrained because they don't have a brain anymore. All they have is the ability to spin the same cycle over and over again, making promises that are no longer applicable. See, it's no longer, it's anachronistic actually, to tell young people you can do anything you want. It is the greatest lie, ideological lie being told to people. So why live with anachronisms? You know, these are no longer necessary. We live in a warfare state, that is the truth. We have spent $7.6 trillion in 10 years building up a military whose only purpose is to serve the interests of very few people in the world, not even people elsewhere. It's not bringing freedom for people. It is bringing new forms of domination. So we have a warfare state. We have a state that is relying upon people going into debt to consume things that they shouldn't really consume. You know, to spin engines where labor elsewhere is going to have to work harder and harder to provide goods which then they are lending you money to buy those goods with. It is a crazy system. I mean, why would Chinese workers work hard to produce plastic goods and then lend us the money to buy those plastic goods to keep the system going? That's a crazy system. There's something wrong with that. You know, why are we not capable of living with solidarity economies where we're able to create spaces where we rely on each other? But the thing is, we don't know each other. Somebody said something interesting to me there. Said that he was amazed that, he said, I lived my whole life and I never saw anybody able to have a conversation where they came to some agreement or where they actually listened to each other. And he said, the only thing I've found that I really like about what we're doing here is we are coming to listen to each other. He says that there are people who are Tea Party-ish and there are anarchists and they're able to communicate. Well, you know, that's a huge advance. Because guess what? In the rest of society, people are so alienated, we don't even know each other. You know, we haven't created any public goods that enable us to meet. Because this society is based in such a thing that we have to individualize every minute of our day. Sitting alone in the car, driving into underground parking lot, leaving it, click, going up into your office, sitting in a cubicle. Occasionally on email you're talking to your friends or texting your friends, but you're essentially alone. And then you don't meet any new people unless it's on the internet. And then who knows who the hell they are. And then after that you leave your work. You may eat at your desk, because our productivity rates have to increase in order to pay off all the debt that we're carrying. We have to work much longer hours, so nobody even goes to lunch together. They eat at their desk. Then the work is finished, back to the car, back alone, listening to some irritating thing on the radio, back inside your house. Your children have walked in. They need to go do homework. They've gone to their room. You then go to your home computer and continue working. And then it's time to go to sleep. What life is that? That is misery. At what point do we say, I reject this entirely? And I think this may be the point. We have begun to say, we reject this entirely. This is unnatural. This is not human. And then on top of that, imagine, we are sending in unmanned aircraft to fly over Pakistan. And the eye in the sky is looking down. And it sees people that it thinks are inappropriate and fires and kills them. And then 2,500 civilians are dead in Afghanistan and Pakistan on the borderline. 2,500 killed from the sky. We have drones flying over Yemen. It sees a car driving in the desert, boom, gone, obliterated. There is no more regard for international law, no more regard for any kind of consideration that other people might have opinions, no regard that other people's opinions should be listened to and then perhaps countered, but not in this manner. No regard for the fact that when you find somebody, it might be worthwhile to bring them to justice, to hear an accounting of what happened. No. This is the world we live in. We live in a world where military states utilize power without care for any kind of law, any restraint. And on the other side, we have ordinary people like ourselves spinning our lives without any sense that we can have social interaction with each other. This is not any longer appropriate. And I'm really glad, and I know that the reason why, like tomorrow in India at the universities, they are going to do a walkout in support of Occupy Wall Street.
Wow.
Why are people doing this? Why in Jadavpur University, where there are a million different problems, struggles, fights, why are they bothering? Because they sense two things. Not only that Americans are now saying, we don't want to live with inequality, we don't want to live with the fact the 1% have squandered our lives. They also believe, they also hope that people are saying, we no longer want to create this geography known as drone land. No longer do we want to have militaries that obscenely demonstrate power all around the world. No longer in our name should we like to have aerial bombardment of entire communities and then say, sorry, there were some casualties, but we got the bad guys. They are hoping that this is not just a movement for us. They are hoping this is not a form of internal turning inward. They are hoping that at the same time we are going to firmly challenge the military state and produce some different kind of international order, or at least join together with countries that are serious about international law. It is a curious thing that when it suits us, we evoke international law. When it doesn't suit us, we break it. When it suits us, when American troops were captured in Iraq and paraded on television, we said this is a violation of the 3rd and 4th Geneva Convention. They should not be paraded on television. Meanwhile, when Gaddafi is killed on the streets, it's a violation of Geneva Convention 3 and 4. Nobody here said that this is a violation. What's sauce for the goose should be sauce for the gander. You cannot have double standards in this world of international law. So what people abroad are hoping, I think, is that when we say occupy, 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 we are not just saying, give us some of what the 1% has hoarded. We are not just saying, give us a share of your wealth. We are also saying, no more military state, no more bombarding, no more double standards. We want to live as human beings with the rest of the planet. We want to live in amity with the rest of the planet. That is what occupy should mean. Questions, some thoughts, debate? Yes.
I would just like to tell you that there are 25 students here from the Labor Studies class at UMass Boston. Would you raise your hands, please?
Okay.
As their instructor, and a graduate.
Okay, great.
As their instructor, I want to thank you very much for restating the purpose of the course.
Fantastic, fantastic. Anything else? Any thoughts? Yes.
Is there a need for different nation states at this point? Or can we transcend those? Or is that even necessary? What's your take on that?
You know, the thing is, there are now 193 nation states in the world. I think before we can consider getting rid of nation states, we have to first consider genuinely rebuilding the institution where the nation states can talk to each other. In other words, we need to take seriously the General Assembly of the United Nations. Unless we build that up, we cannot move forward. Before you abolish something, you have to first communicate with each other, see if there are any commonalities. That is, maybe in the year 3000, we may live without nation states. But to get there, we should first respect the General Assembly of the United Nations. And that is going to take a huge leap for the United States. Yes.
How do you think that this movement over time can start affecting change? Obviously, it has to have some organization that can exert power in the right direction. Do you have any starting sense of that?
No, I know already what it's achieved. What it's achieved is it's achieved something ideologically. Meaning, when the New York Times, when the Vatican yesterday, the Vatican's newspaper came out and